In a world where it's hard to find real, authentic stories, we're here to share the true heart of the trucking industry and the soul of country music. We dive into life on the road and capture the essence of small town America. From the brotherhood of truckers to behind the scenes at NASCAR.
We're the last of the cowboys to giddy up gone boys. 18 wheels on the concrete, it's a slow and down breed, rolling like Jesse James.
We're going to make storytelling, industry insight, and musical highlights. This is the Road Show with Tony Justice and Friends, brought to you by our friends at Fitzgerald Truck Parts. Y'all come on, let's take a ride. When you're out here on the big road, putting in the miles, you sure don't have time to be waiting on parts, much less overpay for them. Fitzgerald's Truck Parts is your go-to for quality parts and fast service when you don't have time to wait. Knowledgeable people, fair prices, and no BS. So truck it up on over to FitzgeraldTruckParts.com and use code Tony at checkout for 10% off your order. This is just for my listeners. Fitzgerald Truck Parts. They're here to keep you moving forward. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Road Show with Tony Justice and Friends. Man, we've been having a good time with a lot of great guests this season, and really excited about today's guest. She's actually her name is Laura Bull. She's actually been working for me and Misty for what? Go ahead, 6 years. 7?
Don't age me. Stop.
Yeah, a long time. She's been extremely helpful and helping us brand the music over the years, and we've been having conversations just before we jumped on here about branding and how important that is when it comes to any kind of business, no matter if you got you own your own trucking industry, running your own authority, your own trucking company, even if it's just one truck, if it's your wife's cupcake business back home, out of the kitchen. We really didn't get anything happening with my music until Laura come along, and she's been such a huge blessing, and that's because she taught us how important branding is. So I thought it'd be awesome to have Laura on today. The author of the book From Individual to Empire, awesome person, very intelligent. Guys, if you want to learn how to brand, you want to make sure you stay tuned to this show. It's going to be awesome. Laura, how are you today? Thanks for coming on.
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. I just we had an interesting morning this morning. I walked through a human cobweb out there that was set up to capture me and kill me, I'm quite sure, by aliens, but I survived it. So
Better you than me.
yeah, it was terrible, but we survived it. But man, you've worked with some of the biggest names in country music. What's one lesson you've learned from those artists about staying true to yourself, even when the spotlight's shining as bright as it does in that industry?
I think it's kind of everything. The ones that are the most successful are the ones that really understand their personal brand and can communicate it to their fans in a way that, I mean, it's so authentic in the way they do it because it is who they are, right? So I've kind of learned my whole brand matrix that I wrote the book about is really from watching people like Kenny Chesney and Johnny Cash and Miranda Lambert and Carrie Underwood, these artists that I've worked with, and really figuring out it's really not the music that comes first, it's their personal brand that comes first. They're writing songs about their values and about their life experiences and about their priorities and all of these things. And if they didn't, they wouldn't be able to communicate that effectively. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so a lot of people out here listening, they probably don't think of themselves as a brand. How do you explain that idea to everyday people like myself, truck drivers, owner operators, whatever it may be, small business owners, or anyone just trying to make a good living, how this it actually does and how important that it is, and no matter what you do.
I always say everybody's a personal brand, literally everybody. So it just depends on what you do with it, right? So even if you're building a business or not building a business, you could be working at a corporation and still need to have a strong personal brand. It's again, what are people saying about you when you leave the room, right? What do you think is going to be written on your epitaph? You know what I mean? Like these are the things that when you walk into a room, you are telling people a story about yourself. And so the more clear you are on what that looks like, the more successful you will be in all areas of life, with all your relationships, with all your businesses. everything. So it really does apply to everybody.
Yeah, you talk about authenticity, being the key to a strong brand. Can you share a story of someone who really leaned into who they are and how it made, how that made the difference, like you're trying to explain? Just a good example of that.
I mean, anybody who is successful is a good example of that. So, but I've had all kinds of crazy conversations that you wouldn't ever think mattered, whether somebody should wear a cowboy hat or not, or whether they should wear a scarf or not. I've had a conversation in a boardroom about an artist having to cut their hair or not. I mean, it's crazy, but it does matter. That's what is funny. And all of those three arguments are true. And they did affect the careers of the people that we were talking about. And it's really comes down to, when you see something, people decide whether they're going to trust you within nanoseconds. So they're going to see you, decide what they think about you before you've even told them who you are or anything. So, like for instance, if somebody is sitting on the Tonight Show couch, right? You have 5 minutes to tell the world who you are. There is no such thing as the it factor. The people that know who they are so well and focused on what that it it comes across in their image, it comes across in their personality and their narrative and their messaging, and it reads authentic to the audience. So that is what people are drawn to. They're like, "Oh my gosh, that's something that I can latch on to."
Things that are real. There's a lot of things in today that are not real, and that always. But there are people, and there are some people that can sell it. They can just flat out sell it, and they're not real. Like I'm not that guy. I'm just like, it's me. If this works, it works because I can't build up this persona of being something that I'm not. And then
Well, and let me explain it this way too. Like if I was the CMO, and I use this example all the time, but if I was the CMO of, let's say, Jeep, right? I'm going to be in a boardroom of people and we're going to decide what personality to put onto a Jeep in order to sell it to a target audience. That is going to be outdoorsy, rugged, fun, adventurous, right? These are things that personality is then going to determine everything that you put onto that brand. So what kind of paint colors are involved? What kind of, like, is it a boxy vehicle? Is it a rounder vehicle? What kind of value added electronics are in it? Like, all of those things are determined by that personality. It's going to be completely different than a Lexus, right? If you're a person, you already have a personality. You already have all of these things that make you unique and make you you. My job is really just to cull through all of that and figure out what the focus is. What are the 4 to 5 key elements of the brand that are going to be true today, no matter what life you live in the next 20 years? um, those things are still going to be true 20 years ago and 20 years from now, right? What is your Nike swoosh? What is your Jeep? It's different because I'm not deciding what personality or what messaging to put onto my clients. It's they're telling me what that messaging is, and then we're just honing in on it, if that makes sense. So that's how it becomes authentic.
so if I'm the independent owner operator, I go out here and I make a $150,000 investment. I buy a truck, the insurance, and I'm wanting to build my fleet. I'm starting with one truck. I'm building relationships. I drove for a company for 4 or 5 years, learned the ropes, trying to do it right before I bought my own truck, building relationships. But here I go. I'm going to start last of the Cowboys Express trucking. And I'm carrying it on, say, my dad's thing here, and I'm gonna keep that family tradition going and build this business. What is my first step in beginning to brand Last of the Cowboys Express? My dreams.
Well, for us, it's always building into the narrative, right? But you've already told me a lot about what this business is by naming it Last of the Cowboys. That has a lot of connotation and meaning to it, right? So it's not just, TJ trucking. It actually has something already messaging there built in. But we always start with the narrative. We always start with the psychology. We, like, for us specifically and the book, it takes people through what those introspection, it's like an audit. It's an internal audit, right? And then you do an external audit to see what is viable in the marketplace. So You're figuring out with this internal audit and this external audit, you're looking at what it is that you stand for. What are those values? What is the strengths? And then you're figuring out what the target audience is. Why are they going to be attached to you? So for us, we are always trying to identify a shared value. What is a shared value that you have with that target audience? Because that is the only thing that is going to spur brand loyalty and brand advocacy, which is word of mouth, people that are really excited about it. So shared values are very big. And then also seeing what is unique in the marketplace. So, like I was saying earlier, you have all these personality traits. To any business has personality trait. You sift through all of those and you're trying to find like a ball of 4 to 5 brain pillars that when put together, they are unique in the marketplace. So I always use an example of like, if I were to say to you, I can't think of her name. It's a powerhouse female vocalist. Help me come up with her name. Well, who is it?
Powerhouse, Martina McBride.
Okay, who else? See, that's my point. It could be so many people. Powerhouse vocalist does not narrow it down. It could be Whitney Houston. It could be everybody, right? So then if I were to say she's, she's got this mod quality. She's British. Now who am I talking about? It's Adele, right? So you narrow it's the grouping together that is going to separate them in the marketplace. And that's what you have to do for all businesses is really figure out what those core pillars are.
I know you've been really, instrumental in helping us identify those types of things, that things that I would never think of. We've been blessed in a lot of ways with what I do, that it kind of some natural things happened along the way, and it kind of kept us going. And then you came along and really helped us get everything organized and going in the road. And it's just, and now that I sit back and look at them, like, holy cow. I just never realized how important that was, as far as branding goes, until, I started, working with some of our sponsors, and always use Van Brown with Bullsnot as, I always refer to our relationship and what we've done together. And, and I've learned through what I've learned, what's come to me naturally, how you make that happen unnaturally, and teaches someone the importance of branding and like the first step. I mean, it's like brand recognition. I think is that like the number one thing, because people have got to know your name.
Yeah, that's when you get into the marketing side. So there's differences, right? So branding versus marketing, and this is the reason I wrote my book, is understanding those two differences. My book is not a marketing book because there are thousands of books on the market that will tell you, how to do Facebook and how to do this and all the things. But once you develop your brand, that's when you go into the marketing. So the difference is like marketing is what you want to say for the next 20 days. Branding is what you want to say for the next 20 years. It's the feeling of the brand, it's what you stand for, it's the uniqueness of the story. It's how you make people feel when they have any touch points to your brand. So that could be online, in person, whatever, right? So like you're on Sirius, you're on Spotify, you're on all these places. Every single time somebody has a touch point to your impression of your brand, you want them to have the same experience across the board. So that's the first thing. And then you go into the marketing, which is brand awareness. And that's how you get brand recognition and stuff like that. But you said something earlier that I wanted to go back to too, because you said we really helped you figure, because like you were saying a lot of things and it was all natural things. And what I wanted to point out is you were saying everything that you were already doing was natural and authentic in who you were. It's just helping you identify what those, or anybody identify what those key elements are that you lean into. And then those are the ones that people really can advocate for. So it's like you were doing everything right. So it wasn't that you weren't stumbling along or anything. It was just like, oh, that we're leaning into that. You know what I mean?
Because yeah, we were just doing what we do. I mean,
Yeah, you
that's
just say everything.
yeah.
Yeah. It's like
There's
where and what does that do as a business owner? It helps you focus. It helps you put your resources where they need to go. It helps clear out, second guessing. You never have to worry about what your messaging is anymore because you know what it is. And that's from the marketing standpoint. So all branding dictates what the marketing is.
So just stay true to your values, guys.
Yeah,
Just stay
exactly.
true to your values, what you believe in, God, family, country. That's kind of what I mean. That's the way I was raised. It's pretty simple. I mean, and stick to that. Those are, especially today, in today's market, those are very, very strong points, because people want to see that moral compass, and they don't want to do business with just anyone. They want to do business with people that they feel like they can connect with, that are good decent people. So you got to brand that. You got to have that out there, and it's not going to work if it's not real. I'll tell you right now, the customer will sniff you out in 2 seconds if you're just not being genuine or passionate about the branding that you're putting out there. If it's not true, it's not going to work. So we're going to take a quick break. We appreciate everybody for tuning in. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, leave us some messages, guys. We'd love to jump on and read your all's questions. We appreciate you guys, asking those questions and participating with us. We're going to take a short break for our advertisers and our sponsors, and we'll be back right after this. So stick around. To all my brothers and sisters of the highway, if you're tired of wrestling with those tangled airlines and your power cord that run from your semi truck and connect to your trailer, then Easy Claw's got you covered. Not only does the Easy Claw system keep your lines and hoses organized, but it also keeps them from dragging and chafing, thus preventing breakdowns, expensive repairs, DOT fines, or even worse, being shut down by our good buddies down there at the Chicken Coop. So let's be less stressed, safer, and compliant, y'all, by checking out my friends at EasyClaw.com. For over 20 years, my buddy Clifton with Crossroads Towing and Truck Repair has proudly served the trucking industry with reliable, family-owned service. Available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to get you moving again, safe and sound. Just call 270-773-4000 and tell them Tony sent you. Hey, everybody. Diesel Pride believes the best way to respect all of us American truckers is to showcase everyday road trucks on their shirts. I love mine. Visit dieselpride.rocks for the best trucker apparel. Tell them I sent you. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Road Show with Tony, Justice, and friends. We're hanging out with a longtime friend of mine and also partner with my music label, Laura Bull. She's does an amazing job with helping to guide us along and has done so throughout several years. And bless her heart, she has to put up with me and try to keep me organized. And it's not an easy job. Most of you guys know me personally, but so anyway, we were talking about while we were on break behind the trucking industry and how all these trucking influencers are coming along and they're being really successful and they're being, they're authentic, very authentic, just doing whatever it is that they do. And it's gaining a lot of momentum. Brian Martin, a Guilty by Association truck show, we just got back from there and he had a whole area, probably half as big as, half of a football field wide, 50 yards wide. And I don't know, like a big area. And he just donated that for trucking industry influencers. And I see it in there. These guys and girls they're all doing, really well on their own just because they're being real and, they're authentic. And I'm sitting here thinking, man, this would be a great, because, they want to take what they're doing to the next level. And so I'm thinking this would be a great episode for them to tune in and watch. And because there's a lot to learn here. So if you're that person, let's put ourselves, you're finding success, you grew, you're starting to understand a little bit, you're getting invited to things like this, you're building a name. What's the next step to take that to the next level?
I mean, so there is a shift in the marketplace over the last couple of decades, really, where if you are starting any type of business venture or trying to expand your name, right? I always say, like, I turn people into brand names. So if you're trying to get known for something, people require that they trust somebody, right? So authenticity is like such a buzzword and a lot of people kind of tune out when they hear that word now, but what that really is that somebody trusts you and it's just like real, right? You're not trying to create something out of a vacuum in order to make a certain group of people happy, right? Or worse, trying to make everybody happy, right? If you're making everybody happy, then you're not standing for anything. And that's so true. I mean, people have been saying that for decades, but it is true. Like, if you're not making people mad, then you're not doing it right, right? So I think that again, we always start with the narrative. We always start with the psychology and an introspection and really figuring out how to narrow down what those authentic pieces are that you can lean into and that makes people confident. And confidence is half the battle too. Like if people don't feel that confidence when they're meeting you, then they're gonna turn away and do somebody else,
I've experienced, you talk about confidence and I've experienced that in the past. I've tried to, I don't know if I explained this correctly or not, but I've experienced that momentum. It's something that's very hard to get going, but when you do, you go after a little something and you find a little bit of success at it. So that builds your confidence a little bit better. So the next time you're talking to someone, that confidence comes out, and then you get maybe like a second sponsor, that momentum will just keeps growing and growing, and that confidence breeds success, and the success breeds more confidence, and it just will get crazy. I mean, I have experienced that. I've experienced getting that momentum. I had to lose it to realize what it was, and then realize how hard it was to get it back, and how lucky I was to get it in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a normal trajectory.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
hope
that's
I never run through it again. I hope we've been fortunate to keep a lot of momentum, a lot of momentum going. But we have a lot of great sponsors, and it's a tricky business. I have pretty large companies that come up to us, interested in sponsoring at time to time, and I'm still figuring it all out. I feel like I do a great job of getting the name out there. I feel like I could take a product nobody's ever heard of and put it across my socials and do that consecutively. You'll be consistent at it for a couple of months, and that name will start. People will start recognizing that name, just like Bull Stomp, for example. But then, being that person that, okay, so say we got all these people that's recognizing the brand. So I mean, how is people gonna know to buy window cleaner if they don't know what Bull Snot is? So they not only gotta recognize the name, they gotta know what it's for,
they gotta know how it helps them.
how it helps them. So getting the name out there and building it up, I feel like we're good at that, but turning that over into sales for Bull Snob. So that's difficult to me. I wrestle with that in my mind. What can I do better for my sponsors to help them sell, not just brand their name, the Bull Snot name and what it looks like, but to turn those new eyes into sales.
Well, first off, it used to take 3 impressions for somebody to act on something, but we obviously live in what I call the age of the narrative. There's so many messages hitting people all day long, every day. You don't even know it. Like, you don't even recognize how many times you're getting served a message from something, somewhere, whatever. So it now takes 15 plus times for somebody to have an impression, and an impression is just a touch point, right? Like, you saw it. It may not be a deep dive. It could just be like seeing a logo on a billboard or whatever, right? But it takes many, many times for somebody to act on something. But also, and all my clients, I kind of preach about this, but the reason why it's successful is that you don't pick any, like, you say no to people that don't make sense to the brand, right? Like, if the messaging is off, then they don't have a place in front of your audience. And if you don't do that, if you start saying yes to everybody just for a paycheck, your audience is going to find out and they're going to be like, "Wait, what?" Like, it's going to feel inauthentic, and then they're going to tune out. Like, why would I listen to this guy anymore? Even for the things that are authentic, this rubs me wrong, right? So I actually start my book with a an example of, like, if I was Beyonce's manager and Home Depot came to me with a $50 million, sponsorship deal to star in some advertising campaigns, would you say yes? No. My initial gut is to say no, because that would harm my brand, right? If I'm Beyonce's manager, what does Home Depot have to do with me, right? Like, that would actually hurt my brand long term, and therefore I would not get the sponsorship deals that I should be getting, right? And therefore, over a 10-year period, she would actually be losing money for accepting this $50 million up front. It's a short-term mentality instead of a long-term mentality. But I actually was teaching this at SMU, and I was like, as I was talking through it, I was like, you know what? There is a world in which this commercial would work, because what does that, like, you got to drill down deep, right? What does Home Depot stand for? DIY, it's masculine, it's gritty, these kind, do it yourself mentality, giving people the power to do it, that kind of thing. If Home Depot wanted to attract women and say, we're trying to make it about powerful, independent women. Well, Beyonce's entire career has been about being an independent woman. She has songs with the title Independent Women, right? Like, who runs the world? Girls. If you create a marketing campaign around that idea, then the messaging does align. And you can actually lean into the differences in those two brands too. Like, why would somebody who's glamorous with a Bentley pull up to a Home Depot parking lot, like walk in, grab something they need, go home, right? But it's the point of they can do it, right? Because she's a woman, she can do anything, right? So, anyways, I think that the when you talk about partnerships and sponsorships, you do have to maintain that trustworthy, authentic messaging, and if it doesn't work, then it's better to say no, even if it's losing revenue.
So what's some of the biggest mistakes that you see people make when they're trying to sell themselves, whether it's an artist, an entrepreneur, or just somebody putting themselves out there, for the first time?
I mean, I think that that's harks back to what we were just talking about. I mean, not being sure about what those brand pillars are so that they know what to lean into, and instead they're just grasping at everything. They want to say everything about them and try to sell themselves as like, oh, but I'm real and this is what I do and this is what I've done and all this stuff. And like, okay, that's a lot. Like, I don't know what to latch onto. And then also not listening to the other side. Like, what is it that they need from me? Right? Like, what are they wanting? If you're posting on social media, for instance, and you're trying to get, trying to push something for your own, like, if it's a new business, say, come see us today at whatever time, right? If people are not responding, that's a response. No response is still a response. What are you not saying that is, or what are you saying that is not connecting with them, right? And figuring that out. Again, it all comes down to psychology.
It can be confusing, and it can be, you can overthink it a lot of times, and I sometimes, I find myself being confused and scratching my head, and when I do, I just always remember just go back to that authenticity that kinda just started it all before just be yourself, quit trying to be somebody else you see that's having success on social media. That's easy to get caught up into. Like, well, that's a pretty good idea. But just being authentic with the people that you do have, staying in touch with them and not losing, you know, with the people that first helped you get going. I've noticed, since I started even my music page, this has turned into a social media podcast more than branding, but it's important. I think it'll help a lot of people listening. I ran into somebody at the truck show in Joplin, and Misty was with me. She goes, "Do you know who that is?" And I'm like, we meet a lot of people, and her name was Cindy Manning, and I had taken a picture with her little kids, 9 or 10 years ago at this truck show, right? And I remember back in the day on my social media, she used to comment all the time, and I'm like, and after we talked a minute, she walked up. I said, "I can't believe I forgot about her." So she used to comment all the time. So I go to my Facebook and like we're still friends. Like, why isn't she commenting anymore? But I went back to my personal Facebook page. So, it dawned on me that I haven't done a good job recently at staying connected with my original supporters, the people that first started being there. So now it's got my mind thinking, what do I do to reach back out to say, hey, thank y'all for all the years you've been there. And I haven't forgot about you, even though may not see your name popping up on social media because before I was on my personal page. Now it's the music page, so I don't see all of that.
It's super serving your fans, it's always about super serving the people that are your brand advocates. Those are the ones that will bring everybody to the party. So it's always good to do that. And, where brands mess up, like I was just thinking as you were talking about that, Cracker Barrel.
Yeah.
HBO did the same thing recently, but it's like when you get a higher platform and you're trying to hit more people, it's easier to forget, about who brought you to the party,
Yeah, and it applies. I know we're talking about a lot, social media and different things, and someone after watching maybe think, well, what does this have to do with me, small business guy? I mean, but these kind of lessons apply to even the guy, just like take notes and listen to what we're saying because we've kind of learned it the hard way.
Well, and the good thing is too is like my book is I mean it's fun because it's about music industry and it's about, entertainment and all that stuff and pop culture, but at the same point it is a textbook. I don't like to call it a textbook, but there are exercises and steps and, by the end of the book you'll really have a good sense of what that personal brand looks like so that you can go do whatever you want with it. So, is that the cookie business? Is that getting a promotion at work? Is that becoming a trucking influencer. I mean, it really does apply to everybody.
It really does, y'all. If you haven't checked out the book that Laura wrote called From Individual to Empire, she sent me a book sometime back, and I have actually read half of that, which is an amazing accomplishment for me. I've only read two. This terrible, but I mean, truth's the truth. I've read two books
I
all the
thought it
way
was more
through.
interesting than that, Tony. Geez.
No, it is. It's good, but what's good about it is what you read. You know, you kind of you remember, and you're like, there's a lot of
Mm.
moments in your book.
Yeah, and people keep asking if I'm gonna write another one, and I'm like, nope. I put everything I've ever done in that one book, and I'm calling it a day. Like that's it. I mean, I talk about how especially for celebrities or people who are really like out there publicly as the face of their business. What's the difference between your private narrative versus your public narrative, and how do you distinguish between the two? I talk about how to look at you like you were saying something earlier that made me something else that is a good point to discuss is that a lot of creative entrepreneurs don't see themselves as CEOs of their business, and you absolutely are. So when you're talking to a sponsor, they're giving you a lot of money as a business transaction, and how are you going to live up to that business transaction, right? And so a lot of creative entrepreneurs don't really see themselves as CEOs of their business, but they really are. But how do you protect your ego, like yourself, like psychology, the self of your mental health, who you are, everything about you? How do you protect that and still treat yourself as a product? Because they're two different things. And to treat yourself as a product demands objectivity, it demands long-term thinking. It demands all of these things that your personality or your ego may react to. Like, for instance, if you get a negative review, like how bad does that hurt? Or do you try to look at it objectively and see it and take that into account for your business strategy?
All right. Well, listen, we got to take another break. We'll be back in a few minutes. We're going to give a shout out to our sponsors. So y'all stick around and don't go away. We'll be right back. Too many drivers are being hurt on the job. That's why the OnLift system by my friends over at Patriot Lift is a total game changer. It's 100% operated by air. You just hit a button and you're dropping or hooking your trailer in a matter of seconds. No more straining on that crank handle. No more injuries and no more missed work. Maybe you run a fleet of trucks, and so you're looking at potentially saving thousands of dollars on workman's comp and injury claims. Listen up. Right now, you can get your OnLift system by Patriot Lift for $900 off the regular price by using discount code TJ2025. Take care of your body and your rig and get yourself an OnLift by Patriot Lift. And hey, it's made right here in the good old USA. My good friend Jay and his team at Pride Truck Wash know that truck drivers are the heartbeat of America and its economy. At Pride Truck Wash, their mission is to help those hardworking people do their job in a clean truck. Stop in at a Pride Truck Wash and experience the difference. To learn more, visit pridetruckwash.com. You guys know that I've trusted House products for years, and so should you. For me, it's Diesel Treat for winter, Diesel Lifeline for emergencies, their Diesel Defender for warm weather, and House Multi-Purpose for just about everything else. Visit House products today. As truckers, we drive more miles than anyone else on the highway. As a result, we're at a higher risk of being involved in an accident. If you've been hurt in a wreck, let my good friends at Terry Law Firm help. They know trucks and how to handle truck wreck cases. Reach out to the Terry Law Firm on the web at terry-lawfirm.com. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Road Show with Tony Justice and friends. Having an awesome time hanging out with my personal director of advertising, good friend Laura Bull. Man, she's had her hands full trying to help me over the years, but she's done an amazing job. And it's the music business. And if you think the trucking industry is tough, try the music industry. And she's helped guide us through this and keep us afloat. If that tells you how good she is at her job. Laura, you wrote a book called From Individual to Empire. If you had to sum it up for a truck driver, say he's driving across Kansas right now listening, what's the one big idea from that book or even this podcast that you'd want them to take away when it comes, for branding themselves, their business, whatever it may be? What's that one big takeaway?
Well, I think that one of the big things that I talk about in the book is everybody is an influencer. Like this is the age of the narrative, right? So everybody's an influencer, whether they're your local pastor or a celebrity, right? And this book really helps see how that trust is built, and it really helps people see like open up the windows, I guess, into that world of how the sausage is made, I guess. and and therefore it actually helps people figure out who they can trust and who they can't trust, right? So that's one big thing. And then the other big thing again is, marketing is not branding. If you are starting a new business, you have to do the branding first. It is imperative, or you will lose money on the marketing side because it is not based on anything. So, branding is the foundation of the house. It has to be done and developed and have a strategy before you can start marketing it. Marketing is the interior design, right? Like if you are starting to do something, oh, and then, okay, there's a lot of main points in the book, but the, uh, a logo is not a brand. Like a lot of people think logo is a brand and it's not. Your logo should exude what the brand stands for, but it is not the end all and be all. So you cannot just go to a graphic designer and say, this is what I want. This is my favorite color. I get that a lot. I have a lot of clients that I have to talk off the ledge of like, we don't get to just choose what our favorite color is because there's psychology in colors. Did you know that a lot of most restaurant signs on the highway, I mean, as you're driving down right now, look around you, all of the signs that are food related are red. Think about that. All the logos are red. Why? Because red is a color that makes people hungry. It is something, it is a psychology, right? So almost every single food and fast food joint has a red logo to it.
Well, no wonder all us rednecks always want to have barbecue.
I mean, I'm telling you, there is psychology behind branding. So if you're going, for instance, if you're going into fast food and you think a deep blue color is the way to go, you're wrong because deep blue is like calm and trustworthy. There's a lot of like lawyers that do that color, professional services that do that color. What else? Like banks. Banks are usually blue or green. I mean, there is psychology to behind it. So I could go on for hours, but you got to figure out the narrative first before you figure out what that logo looks like.
But at the end of the day, too, I mean, you can do all this stuff, and there's so much of it. It's way over my head. I'm not even gonna pretend to know what it's about. But at the end of the day, you could be like a brilliant person at all this and understand it. But if you don't have a good product, if you don't have something that's real, something that you're genuinely passionate about, I mean, it's like people are just going to see that, I think, and it's not going to work no matter what you do. That would be, to me, just sitting back, that would be the number one key, the foundation that you build your business on is like, okay, I may not know what I'm doing, but I wanna jump into this. I can't sleep because this is just what I wanna do. That's how I felt about the music. I mean, I spent so many years before people ever knew my name. I mean, from 2000 1998 to, 2012 working on music.
You gotta have to have it. It's like because the days are not great. The years are good, but the days are not great. You are gonna have to get in there and slug it out.
Yeah, I was lucky to get to open up for Charlie Daniels. I was trying as a Forks of the River Jam, Newport, Tennessee. One of my good friends was a promoter putting it on, so I had the buddy system, and I got to get up there with my acoustic guitar and open up, for this big day of music. And Charlie Daniels was one of the people there, and I got to go say, "Hey, what's up?" on the bus, and so I asked him a question. I said, if there's one piece of advice you could give me, I was what 17, 18 at the time. I was like, what's that one piece of advice, when it comes to music business that you'd give me, And he goes, I would I would ask yourself a question, one question. And if you've ever been honest with yourself, now's the time to be that guy. If you knew right now today, no matter how hard you work at this, no matter how hard you sacrifice, no matter how much you invest in it, you will never have any success at it. Would you still do it? And I was like, I didn't answer the question. I didn't answer the question. And I never got to see him again after that. Something that I might would, because sometime later, it dawned on me, like, yeah, I would, because it's just, I would still be writing songs and picking, and it has nothing to do with the success. I'd already been doing that. up to that point that he asked me that question.
Yeah, and the distinction that I make in the book too is the difference between passion and purpose. Like if somebody comes to me as an investor and they're like, "I have a passion for this." Okay, that's good, but a lot of people have that passion. But if you have a purpose for this, then that is something that is so deeply ingrained that you will it doesn't matter. You're going to do it no matter what. And that is the difference. So, cuz like anybody can sing, right? But are you willing to slug it out. And my book is dedicated to those broken down on the side of the road, because it's like there is a way out, It's just you just gotta get in there and roll up your sleeves.
It's a lot of work. It's the writing, the recording, the performing. That's like 3% of the music. The rest of it's work. I mean, just work. I mean, you got the business side, the taxes and all the legalities of running a business. You got to learn.
You're CEO. You just learned how to be a CEO. That's what it is.
I learned that the hard way. We've attracted sponsors, but then you got to learn how to be good for them. You gotta make them happy. Getting them's one thing, keeping them's another.
You got deliverables, you got schedules, you got all the things. Yep.
Be passionate about what. That's today's takeaway from this. You got to be passionate because if you're not, it will chew you up, spit you out. I wake up some mornings, I look at Misty, it's like, time to wake up and feed the beast. You said, what? I said, this thing we created, this dream, we created a monster and now we got to get up every morning and feed it. Now I understand what my dad meant when he said, I don't care what you become in life, you're always going to have a boss. And it's so true now. I used to look at my life, no, if I own my own company, I'll go fishing when I want to go. I'll go hunting. My son looked at me the other day. He goes, Dad, we went fishing more when you were trucking, out on the road trucking than we do now that you're working full time on the music. I'm like, yeah, this is not the way it's not the way I see how this working out.
I had one boss at Sony, the president of the label, and now I have 10 bosses at any given time. All my clients.
Yeah, it's a lot. So yeah, that would be the key takeaway from today. Make sure you're passionate about what you're doing. If you are passionate, if you are looking at growing your business, growing your brand, guys, check out Laura's book, From Individual to Empire. So many things in there that you're going to learn from. That's going to help you along with doing that and being successful at doing it. Because at the end of the day, if y'all stayed this far on here, listen to the show, then you're probably genuinely passionate about what it is you're doing, and you got to check this book out and read it. It's going to help you. Is there other ways people can look you up, Laura? Like if they're interested in, hey, I'd like to have her be my, maybe this is work for their company, help us get branded better, help us with our mission.
Yeah, so the company page is thebrandmgmt.com. So the company is the brand management, thebrandmgmt.com. And we actually just created and launched a new brand report that is 30 pages of actual data, marketplace data. It's personalized and it's much easier, and we can turn it in 5 days for people. So it's a very streamlined process that takes our 5-month process down to 5 days. That's on the website too.
Well, you do awesome work. I'm grateful for you. I've always been very grateful for you, me and Misty both, and we've had a lot of good times, a lot of things we're working on for 2026. And guys, if you're looking to take your business, your brand to the next level, I highly suggest you get up and read Laura's book, Individual to Empire, or go to their website, check them out. You'll be glad you did. Y'all have a great day. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to hit the share button, hit the subscribe button, leave us a message. Got any questions? We'll be getting back to those. And God bless as always. Speed safely. Hey guys, thanks for tuning into the Road Show with Tony Justice and Friends, brought to you by our great friends over at Fitzgerald's Truck Park. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review. Also, follow us on my social media for more updates and behind the scenes content. Until next time, God bless, and as always, speed safely.